Last night during prayer, uh, I was playing one of the songs that we used to play a lot in Michigan. And as I was reminiscing, right, thinking back, uh, what where I was and where I am now, it's been basically 10 years, right? And that one point, I still remember um, I had dropped off an employee to their house. And it's like 5 degrees out there, right? 0 degrees, 5 degrees. The roads are very icy. It's cold that gets to your bone. You come outside, and it's a cold that hits your bone. And it was a time when I was working 12, 16-hour days. Making no money, of course. Dealing with employees that I felt I had to carry, right? There wasn't really someone I could rely on, right? I was the captain of the ship, and I was basically carrying everybody. And it was one of the lowest point in my life. And I remember, I was driving back to the hotel, and there's this church that I passed through. It has the cross. And it would be a church I would later, of course, attend. But I remember as I'm driving, and this is before, I read the fire books, before I came on board with the fire books. This is when I was very discouraged, depressed, drinking, smoking. And I was driving by, and then I just started shouting and screaming and asking God, like, why is this happening? Why am I in this situation? I know how did I get to this point? How could I have made this decision? I was like stuck. I'm in prison. There's only Walmart and JCPenney. Before that, I never shopped at Walmart, right? My wife would never shop at Walmart. Now I look for Walmart, right? I look for the good deal. And when I used to go out with my friends partying, I only bought brand name clothes, right? I mean, very expensive, and then we only have JCPenney. Same thing with Pastor Eugene, right? Even if we wanted to go to a mall, it'd be like you have to go basically 5, 6 hours down to the metropolitan area because we were so high up, right at the edge of the Canadian border. We can't go anywhere, right? And in the wintertime is -10, 0, 5 degrees. You can't go out anywhere. You just got to go home. I remember waking up early to go to work, 6, 7 o'clock, because I got to go cook breakfast. And you come outside, it's -10. And then you go in your car, and everything's frozen. And I hated that moment, right? And I read Job 10, or Job. I read the book of Job 10, and Job chapter 10, the book of Job I read, and Job chapter 10 became my favorite chapter. Right? I loathe life. That's what Job said. I loathe life. It means I hate life, basically. Why was I born? I was taking his position. And one thing with Job, though, is he didn't actually complain to God. He just didn't like his life, right? So I was in that position. And not realizing that God was in full control, and God had a plan for me. You see, most Christians out there, we don't understand God's ways. We have a knowledge and theory that He loves us, He's with us, He has a good plan for us. But we have most Christians out there. You have yet to really experience this, okay? You know, I'm gonna tell like our young men who sings, who you know, RAF, the rappers. What comes to me in my spirit as they write songs, and what is God is showing me with the many song writers and singers out in the Christian community, they're writing what the Lord has done or doing and where they've been in a sense. But a lot of what they're writing is knowledge, you see, from the Bible, right? The promises of God, what He has done. But until you've actually come to that brokenness and experience with God, you're not going to be able to bring that anointing out, the true, the passion, the love of God out as you sing, right? You'll just become one of those typical Christian song writer and singers who got good lyrics and can sing well, perhaps, but the words just fall on the surface. It doesn't fall into the depth of their spirit, right? And I want our singers, as you write songs, I want you guys to, you know, really meditate. Is this occurring in your life? And if it has, how has it? You know, don't just look at it from a surface perspective, right? Where and how has God brought you from? And if not, then expect God to shake your tree, right? Because you will be broken. You know, even the Bethel, main Bethel singer, they lost their boy. Through that brokenness, their spirit, their tears come out as they write songs, right? And so we want to go through something where you're voluntarily asking God to break you. You don't want to go through the hard, really, really hard way, right? Anyway, I'm at that position in Michigan, you know. I'm asking, what's going on? And if you read about Gideon, same thing with Gideon, right? Angel comes to Gideon. I don't know what's going on. Why are we like this? Why are we the tail? Why are the enemy overpowering us and stealing all our crops? And why are we slaves to them? Right? And Gideon doesn't know. It's the sins of his forefathers and his parents, the people that have put them in a place of oppression. Two main verses that God gives to His people. See, we don't realize a lot. See, when I was in Michigan, in some sense, I'm in spiritual exile, right? I'm trapped. I can't sell, right? It's not as easy to sell. What am I going to do? Walk away? You can't walk away from an investment like that. So God trapped me, and I'm in my spiritual exile. Two verses God continuously gives to the church, right? And one of this is Jeremiah 29, and I'm going to start at 10. If you want the truth, this is what the Eternal has to say. You will remain in Babylon for 70 years. Why are they in Babylon? They have been sent to exile in Babylon because of their sin, right? Teach them obedience. And they have to also pay for their sins. So they have to pay for their sins for a time, right? When that time is over, I will come to you. So sometimes in our exile or in our darkest moments, as in our walk with God, it appears like God's not answering us. It appears like God's not even paying attention to us or even caring for us. But in reality, He's watching you. He just needs us to finish a certain time where you have to finish taking in your harvest, right? Your fruit for the bad seeds that you have sown. So you have to endure that time. And then He says, I will come to you and I will keep my promise, bringing you back home. 11, this is where I want you to listen very carefully. For I know the plans I have for you, says the Eternal, plans for peace, not evil, to give you a future and a hope. Never forget that. At that time, you will call out to me and I will hear. You will pray and I will listen. Why does God say in here, plans for peace and not evil, In other translation, it says, not to do you harm. Why would he add that in there? Not to do you harm. Because you see, a lot of times when we get disciplined by God, you're wondering, why is this bad thing happening to me? Right? Because you're perceiving it as bad. Your situation appears bad. You could be losing money. Your family could be falling apart. You know, your health issues could be deteriorating. Something is occurring, and it looks like it's a harm to you. But yet God is saying, you know, it's not. I'm not trying to harm you here. I'm not trying to inflict evil on you. I have plans, a good plan for you. You just have to endure. Okay, endure. And then at a certain time, I'm going to come to you. And so when I was in Michigan, you see, I had to endure a certain time. God wasn't directly answering me when I was asking, why am I here? How did I choose this situation, God? Why is this happening? You know, like I said, he wasn't directly answering me, but he was around. He was also working in my wife, right, to break her while I'm like in jail, secluded, trying to figure out why this is happening to me. And if I had, you see, what was God's will for us in that moment in Michigan? See, I'm running a 130-room hotel, okay? This has a restaurant. It even has a bar. I have banquets where we can have up to 300 people, right? Wedding banquets, and I have to run all this. I was running up to 25, 30 employees under me, right? This is all God is training me for today, right here. And when the wedding's over, because the productivity level is so low, I'm doing the dishes, because if I let my people do dishes, we're there all night doing dishes. And the machine does the dishes, right? So I got to do the dishes still. You know, clean them up, stack them, send it through, and restack. Took me 5 hours sitting like this just doing dishes. And at that time when I was doing it, I didn't complain to God. I was exhausted. You know, I just did my job. I never took it out on my employees. Those were all tests for me. Even though I didn't know it, right? They were all tests. In my greatest stress, will you blow up at your employees because they are short-sighted or because they can't give you the productivity? What would you do, Steve? I fill the gap. You see? I cover them in a sense. I know they don't have the ability. What am I going to do, yell at them? They don't have the ability. They don't have the work ability to do the speed and the efficiency that I can do, right? I'm not boasting that I'm like Superman, but I was raised working since 12 years old, so I have a work attitude, right, of getting job done and boom, boom, boom. They weren't raised like that, so they don't know how to work. They just kind of, loitering around. They have to be told every single step what to do. Was there times I want to blow up? Oh, yes, I want to blow up. But because I read the Bible, those words are imprinted in my heart. And so I filled the gap and I covered them. And I didn't know God is at that time, I didn't know God is working for me through, like here in Jeremiah 29. In those moments, our life is very difficult. God gives my wife Jeremiah 33:3. God gives those two verses to many people out there. Jeremiah 33:3, Jeremiah 29 here, verse 11. Because a lot of people don't know God, right? Even if they're Christians, they don't know God. So God is trying to get them to know Him. But He's got to basically bring him to ashes. while he's trying to bring them to ashes, they don't know what's going on. And so God has this verse, I have a good plan for you, not for harm or evil. I'm going to give you a future. Just keep having faith and wait. Most important thing, wait. God's will for me and my wife was stay in Michigan. We didn't know how long, right? I'm losing money. It looks like we're gonna lose the property eventually. You know, I mean, by that time, the general economy, the whole U.S. is going down, right? GM, Ford, GM's on the verge of bankruptcy, and it's just bad out there in Michigan. Thoughts of leave Michigan, walk away. I could do that. But what's God's will? Stay. Verse 10, remain in Babylon for 70 years. That's his will. That's 70 years. It doesn't mean for me to stay there 70 years. It's just a spiritual number of a completion for God, right? And God, because we are ignorant at that time, he has to use the circumstances of life to trap us, to guide us, to lead us to life. You see? And whatever is occurring in your lives, sometimes we ask this question, why is this happening to me, God? Why has those things happened? Why is all this? See, and the reason why we're not getting out of it is because we're not staying where God wants. You see, we want to go where it's comfortable. We want to go where I can relax and feel normal, in our own definition. We don't want to stay in a stressful place. Ever since I stepped foot in Michigan from 2005 to 2010, it was a stressful ordeal for me for 5 straight years. 5 straight years. I never made money there. Losing money every year, losing money, just floating credit until, of course, at the end, many of you know the story. And then when through those tribulation, now I'm pressing towards God, right? And I'm asking God, okay, God, why is this happening, Lord? I'll do whatever you want. I'll go wherever you want. And then he's telling me, I'll have your property sold. Yes, right? I'll stay. He's going to have my property sold. And then, he sends me a couple of bogus buyers, right? And the one buyer said, oh, yeah, I'll buy it for you. And I'm going to build this big old ice theme park, and I'll buy it for you at this certain price. And I'm thinking, I'm going to walk away with $1 million. Ooh, yes, God, you are faithful. Hallelujah. That's how we're taught, okay? You're taught by the church out there. God's going to come through, and this is true. But, see, we don't know how he's going to come through. That's the problem. The Messiah is coming to deliver you, and they're thinking he's going to come to get rid of the Romans. You see, it's their own thinking, my own thinking. Oh, yes, God, Cinderella story, right? Come and send me a buyer. I got $1 million, and now I go into the sunset. That's our Cinderella story. That's not how God works. God's way to save us is first to get rid of your sin, right? Not to give you a bunch of money and to make your life all happy when you're still in the midst of sin. See, we just don't know we're in the midst of sin. And when the Lord came, he did come to deliver them. But they're like, you're not delivering us. And so they killed him and betrayed him. And see, if you don't know his ways, you might end up betraying him because you were so expecting Jesus to rescue you in your own way. And when he doesn't come the way you expected, that's the danger where you will abandon him. And this is why we have to lay it all down. You see, whatever happens, let it happen. But you see, God gave me a hint. You know, it's like, I'm going to have it sold. And then when the bank came in 2010 and we went into foreclosure, I was like, I was in total shock. That's one of my critical moment tests. God, you told me you're going to get this sold. Now the bank has come. I'm confused, God. I thought, you know, he'll still part the Red Sea for me 6 months down, right, somehow. But then I come to realize, oh, you meant the bank will sell this. Okay, I see, God. Okay, I understand. That's fine. I didn't get mad at God. Some people might have got mad at God, right? You told me you're going to sell. Where's my $1 million, God? But see, that's not God's way. He's not going to hand me $1 million at that moment. Even if he said he would, he's talking about a different time within my future, not at that moment, right? During the tribulation, God is giving my wife Jeremiah 33:3. Call on to me, right? That means pray. Stay in prayer. In the midst of your time in Babylon. He didn't say, you see, he's telling his people in Jeremiah, God puts them in Babylon. He doesn't say, try to escape Babylon. He doesn't say, try to pray to get out of Babylon. He's telling them, plant yourself in the midst of your oppression, captivity, what you perceive as a bad circumstance, because I have a good plan for you. And I want you to pray for Babylon, in fact. And I want you to have children. I want you to grow gardens and just have a life. And I want you to just wait for me. You see? And so whatever situation God have you in, first order is not try to get out. Because, you know, we always want that. We just want to get out. Whatever God has you in, you have to have the first order, first attitude. I'm going to stay here as long as God wants, because usually God's time is longer than your own expectation. And I've learned that so many times. And you just stay, you accept, you pray. And as you pray, call on to me. He's going to give you the revelation while you're there. You know, if you were a Gideon at that moment, why am I here? He's going to give you the revelation that this is for your own good. And I have a great plan for you, in fact. A great future. And when that time ends, the questions you have for me, I will answer you, he says. And I will be found by you. You and I will have that a real relationship now. It won't be like, where are you, God? See, when you're in Babylon, where are you, God? But when you come out of Babylon, you come out passing your test, then it's like, now he's there, you see. And some of the church out there, or even here, you might be in spiritual exile. Right? You feel trapped. You feel suffocated. You feel like God's not answering you. You feel like you thought what God told you is wait, this is not what what's occurring is not what what I think God told me, right? And you're like, the situation is bad. So that's why God is reminding us, this is not for evil, not to harm you. And you have to just wait. We have to learn how to wait for him in the midst of tribulation, all right? Most of us just want to run, want to get out of tribulation. Because if you can't handle tribulation in America, how are you going to handle the great tribulation? Right? Even if you lose your job here, they'll give you food stamps. You can still eat. In the great tribulation, you will need your faith, all right? Because everybody is going to be they're gonna know you, and you're gonna be in the system, right? So without God's protection, you'll starve. They'll catch you in the great tribulation. And so these days, the Lord is giving Pastor Kim a lot of information on the end time. So we're going to be sharing that with you guys as we move forward. Amen. But at the same time, many of you, as you are being trained, right, train for the end times, a lot of you are still in your perhaps spiritual exile. And when you're in your spiritual exile, don't worry about the other people who's come out of their spiritual exile and now experiencing their harvest of blessing. Your concentration be for yourself, that I need to finish my time in my spiritual Babylon, right? And just endure any hardships or tribulation that you're going through. And you have to always remind yourself where God has brought you from. You know, I reminisce sometime. I don't remember a whole lot, you know, in Michigan, because it's been 10 years, and I think maybe half the time I was drunk, but that's what my wife said. She goes, "You don't remember none because you're just drunk." But I remember, you know, key points when I was very confused and very lost, and I was crying out to him, and he was coming for me, you see. If you're crying out for him and you feel that he's not there or answering your prayer yet, I want you to be encouraged to know that he is coming for you. In fact, he is. As you're sitting here in a fire ministry church, he is coming for you, right? He is answering you. It just takes some time for you to grow into that revelation and to maturity to realize that he does have a good plan for me. You know, what I've gone through is just my own flesh fighting to survive, right? And so, you know, some of you may have to go through extended difficulties, right? To die to yourself. Some of you might be coming out, but regardless, half your battle as a Christian, and I always preach this, right? Half your battle is learning to wait for him. It's not fighting, you know. It's just waiting for him. And that's the hardest thing for many people. Just waiting, waiting, waiting. Because he is coming, right? But as you wait, you're submitting to his time. You're submitting to his sovereignty, that you're the king. It's your time, God. It's your decision. It's when you say go. It's when you say I'm free. It's when you say I'm going to be healed. It's when you say you will restore my fortunes, right? And so these people that have been sent to Babylon, they got everything taken away. And what is the context here in verse 14, right? What is going to happen to us if we're patient and we're faithful? And even though you might be scared and confused, right? If you don't get mad at God and raise your fist on him, but you just stay neutral and wait in prayer still. I will be found by you, says the Eternal, verse 14. And I will restore your fortunes and gather you from all the nations. So gathering you is also restoring your families where you have been scattered, right? Your family, your personal life could be scattered all over the place. Where I have driven you. Who has done this? God has done this, right? I will bring you back to the land that is your rightful home. And so there is a promise to restore all our fortunes. What you may have lost, and even if you weren't really rich, your ancestors were rich, so God's going to restore that fortune to you because it belongs to you, right? And so this is for all of us. And some are at different, you know, speed or time, and some might have their fortunes restored earlier than others. And when that happens, right, you should be glorifying God and being happy for the other people rather than getting jealous or envy. Then you're just going to lag. All right, you're going to lag and you're going to go fall behind again. Okay, amen? All right, we'll stop there. Let's give the Lord a hand.